From the post-millennial, Hunter Biden pleads guilty to 3 felonies, other charges in tax evasion case. Biden's lawyers first attempted to enter an Alford plea, which would have seen Hunter Biden plead guilty but maintain his innocence. His attorneys later agreed to a standard guilty plea after an exchange with prosecutors. According to the Daily Mail, Judge Mark Scarsey told the president's son that he could face a sentence of up to 15 years in prison and a $1 million fine once convicted of the 3 felony and 6 misdemeanor counts. In entering a guilty plea, Ab Lowell said his client did not want to cause more difficulty for the family. Your Honor has basically indicated that there's a need to address the public interest, but Mr. Biden also has to address the private interest. This has been a difficult time for him and his family. Enough is enough. They attempted the Alford plea, which we read in the subhead. Special counsel David Weiss alleged in the indictment that Biden engaged in a 4-year scheme to not pay at least $1.4 million in self-assessed federal taxes he owed for tax years 16 through 19, or from in or about January 17th through about October 15th, 2020, and to evade the assessment of taxes for tax year 2018 when he filed false returns, blah, blah, blah. Very, very interesting. Libertarians are probably screaming in defense of Hunter Biden because he's been charged on gun rights and taxes. And of course, libertarians are very much on the other side of these things. But Libby, you had a good point as to why he took this plea deal and why it's going down. So what up?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that maybe he took the plea deal now and got the conviction out of the way so that there's still time for his father to pardon him before he's officially out of office.
But Corinne Jean-Pierre came out today and said, no, Joe Biden's sticking with what he said in Delaware. He's not going to pardon him. It is interesting because you would think, and I heard a couple other analysts talking about this today, it's his only surviving son. He doesn't have a political career after this. So why wouldn't President Biden just go?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the first time that the White House has gotten Joe Biden's motives and plans wrong. I mean, the White House told us repeatedly for months and months and months that Joe Biden was going to stay in the race, that he wasn't going anywhere, that he was definitely planning on, continuing his run for presidency. And that was all upended by Joe Biden one Sunday afternoon, who just casually said that he wasn't going to do it. So, I think there's every reasonable expectation to believe that Joe Biden would pardon his son. And, this may be a hot take or whatever, but I think that's probably that's what I would do.
He's going to do it.
I would do it.
Yeah, I think he's going to do it.
I think the Alford play was actually the most interesting part because that is an acknowledgement that there is enough evidence against you that you will be convicted. And the prosecutors were resistant to this. They were saying, he committed crimes. You shouldn't let him get away with this plea. And there was resistance, and ultimately he had to just plead guilty. Do you guys remember that sweet plea deal he had for a while? Where it was you can't charge him with anything else. They had rolled the tax evasion and the gun charges together. Yeah. And now he's pleading guilty without any agreement on the table. He's facing 17 years in prison. I don't think he'll get that, but...
Why are they charging? Why was he charged?
Why was he charged?
Why was he charged?
You mean why did they finally get around to charging him after the IRS agents for years were like, hey, maybe there's something going on here?
Yeah.
I think they did it so that it was almost to run cover for all of their other charges so that they could say see, we're not charging Trump politically. We're also charging Hunter Biden, and I think that's a big part of it. And also I think that Hunter Biden was the... was the guy who was determined to get thrown under the bus. He was the one who was, set up by the family. Somebody had to take the fall, and it may as well have been the guy who was already looking pretty bad in the public eye.
Yeah.
I think he's being thrown under the bus in part to protect his father.
Yeah.
Because the House still has, right? The House has an impeachment investigation open.
Yeah. And I could see him being kind of the sacrificial lamb. So,
yeah, exactly.
And then also, the FBI, all these agencies are see, we're not partisan. We're not weaponized. We go after both sides.
Yeah.
And we clearly know that the Hunter Biden treatment is not even on the same level that they've treated Trump.
When Biden came out, however many months ago and said, no, I believe in law and order in this country. And if he is convicted, I'm not going to pardon him. I think that is part of the attempt to save the Biden legacy because they are really known, I think, by both sides as a somewhat corrupt or somewhat shady family. I mean, I don't even think Democrats, because with Hunter Biden, it wasn't just the Burisma stuff. It wasn't just his connections to owning that gun, but he's acknowledged very publicly in his memoir that he's an addict. You could have sympathy for that, but he does treat the people around him pretty terribly. And then there was all of the coverage of the legal battle over his daughter, Navy, who he wasn't acknowledging, Joe Biden wasn't acknowledging. And so in some ways, I think being able to sort of summarize Hunter Biden's crime as being it's the gun thing, it's tax evasion, we're not going to talk about anything else, is the Biden family attempt to sort of to lock this up and move into gold plating Joe Biden's legacy.
We do have another story too, which we'll get into later in greater detail, but it's a DOJ it's the chief DOJ guy for public affairs in New York saying that they are engaged in lawfare against Trump. He's in a private setting saying like it's a travesty of justice what they're doing to Trump. They're going after him. And so without getting into too much of that, because we will get into it later, what we're looking at with Hunter Biden very much just feels like we're going after the Bidens too. Mm-hmm. Yet we're all wondering why Jack Smith is still so adamant about getting Trump indicted in the superseding indictment pertaining to documents, but Joe Biden is not being charged in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very dodgy situation where Robert Hur, we talked about this the other night, where Robert Hur said that Biden was essentially too sympathetic, that no jury would convict him. But the circumstances of the absconded documents are so incredibly different in those two cases. You know, like on the one hand, Biden wasn't entitled to have them at all. They covered it up. Merrick Garland went as far as to, refused to comply with a congressional subpoena, which is absolutely insane. And then his staff at the Department of Justice said that they were not going to charge him, even though charges were recommended by the House, right? I mean, and then one thing that happened too was you had, and Anna Paulina Luna was really interesting in this regard, but you had Garland come out and say, you know, if I'm going to be congressionally subpoenaed and be forced to turn over documents as part of our investigation, that's going to be a problem because it will prevent witnesses from feeling in the future that they could trust the Department of Justice. But you equally had Luna saying, if congressional subpoenas have no teeth, then Congress can't do any investigations. And pretty much all the GOP has right now is the ability to do investigations, and they're necessary investigations. They're bringing Andrew Cuomo in next week to discuss the, COVID nursing home deaths. I have a whole lot of things that we could say about that. They've been bringing people in to deal with the impeachment. They've been impeachment investigation. They've been dealing with the Weaponization of Justice Committee has been doing some really incredible work. You have Jim Jordan out there with the Facebook files, literally uncovering government collusion, censorship on social media platforms. This is what's been going on. I think Garland probably should have been arrested and charged and tried for.
I love Merrick Garland.
Yeah, he's your favorite. I know.
He's a good guy. He's just
best.
One call from the FBI.
Well, hey. He's attractive and handsome, accomplished.
Well, you know what, though? Here's the thing is no one is above the law, as your buddy Merrick Garland likes to say. He is very fond of saying that, except he apparently believes that himself and his boss, big guy Joe Biden, are above the law.
Yeah, he should be in jail. Merrick Garland should be in jail. And Merrick, it's not personal. It's that you're in contempt of Congress, and that's what we do.
There's this crazy thing called due process, and every American is entitled to it under the Constitution. And that should be, lawyer up, Mr. Garland. That should be what's going on, but it's not.
Do you think part of it is that he sees himself as the law? Like, there is no reason to challenge him because he is the arbiter of what is okay.
He is the top cop in the country, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing that, with a whole lot of Department of Justice things going on this week. There's the RT thing. There was the 32 internet domains were seized. The doppelganger domains, they were seized. I opened up my my Department of Justice emails that I get because they send out press releases about every case. Mm-hmm. And I scroll through them to see what could be good stories. Those things are packed the past couple of days. They are chock full.
Yesterday was crazy for them.
Yeah, there was like 4 pages of press releases about convictions and trials and charges and all kinds of things.
Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. And it's kind of like also maybe Merrick Garland knows that his time is coming to an end.
That could be
And he's gotta like clean his, I don't know if docket is
we are 61 days?
Something like that.
61 days, yeah.
61 days, man. That's crazy. And to be fair, it's not even 61 days because early voting starts, a month out?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to this idea of an October surprise, it very well may be coming any minute.
Yeah.
And it is turning the news cycle. I mean, we talked about this after Joe Biden announced he was leaving. The news cycle was dominated by how badly he had done in the debate. And then it was the assassination attempt in Butler. The only way the DNC was able to get control of that was by swapping out their candidates. Then it became all about who is Kamala Harris, what is she doing, who's going to be your VP, who are these people, all the way through the DNC. And now we get this moment where it could start to turn to be critical. And instead, the federal government is like, here's 27 different press releases about things that we could have been talking about all year, but instead, for some reason, we never did. Like, fascinating. One of the things that came up yesterday was the DOJ announced that they're investigating 2 prisons in California for the sexual abuse of female inmates, which... Why now? Why didn't you start this in January? What have you guys been doing?
Who are they alleging has been abusing them?
It looks like they're saying officers, but I had the same question. I think you do, which is like, are you saying other inmates that might biologically be male?
Perhaps because there is an inmate who is, I think, going on trial for, he's a man. He's in the women's estate, and he has been amazingly abusive. Mm-hmm.
It happens in a lot of states, but again, like the DOJ has suddenly thrown a lot of stuff out there, and that is what the news cycle is focusing on. Now, as someone who talks about the news, it is sort of nice to not have to talk about the election constantly all the time, 24/7. On the other hand, if you're an effective government, why wait? Why did Merrick Garland choose now versus, 6 months ago for some of this stuff? Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.